Welcome to another episode of Andy's Chomping at the Bit, brought to you by Big Andy Media, the official sponsor of every Friday episode of Andy's Chomping at the Bit. So today I'm going to talk about honesty, and it may sound like a simple topic for some people, but there's certain areas of honesty that I struggled with immensely throughout my life, and oftentimes it was one of those things that I'd write it off, and so would a lot of other people, as storytelling. So that was my workaround for certain lies, because it'd be exaggerating the truth, which is still a lie. But a lot of things I used to lie about or exaggerate, however you want to look at it. I look at it as a lie at this point. They weren't necessary. Stories that didn't need to be spiced up, they're already spiced up. And sometimes the lies were actually, they were, in theory, less severe than the, or they were more severe than the actual situation for bad things. Because, I don't know. I just had to amplify them at the time. Well, I didn't have to, but I did. I chose to amplify the stories at the time. And it's a shame, because there's so many things I didn't need to make up. And looking back, my life's loaded with a lot of good stories, even if I take away the exaggerations, the lies. So one I'm going to address with real quick as an example. And this isn't a big one as far as impact overall, but it's one I've told quite frequently. In fact, I've only told one person the truth on this lie, actually. And I got so used to saying it that it was so hard to correct it, and it just naturally came out when I talked to people since then. So here's my chance to correct it right now. Back in 2011, I recorded an album, music album, down in Nashville, Tennessee. And I had the privilege of meeting some amazing artists and down there. One of the artists that I got to meet was Peter Keys, the keyboard player from Lynyrd Skynyrd, who is on my album for all 12 songs. And that part of my story was true. Where the story gets a little twisted and not so true is when it comes to the search for the female vocalist on the album, who ends up being Jennifer Stokes on the actual album. And she's a great singer, by the way. Phenomenal and excellent choice. I'm glad that she was on my album. But the story changes from there. So about 6 months after I recorded my album, or after it was released, actually, I saw the movie 50-50. Great movie. And in that movie, I saw an actress for the first time, because I hadn't seen Twilight movies and stuff, but I saw Anna Kendrick. And I don't know why. I actually do know why. I decided to, because she was. I didn't know she was in other movies, for one. She seemed like a simple up and coming actress, and so I'm like, okay, well, one day I just randomly threw her into the equation of my story of recording and saying that she was hanging out at the studio and everything, and I believe I also early on said that, yeah, I did. I said that she offered to sing on my album when we were going through the list of people, which we were going through a list of people, but she was not there, and so therefore she couldn't have offered. I did have the option, talking to, I believe it was my drummer on the album, who was touring with Leanne Rimes, and it was something like, that would have been possible. It would have cost a lot of money. So I didn't even consider that route. But anyway, so I told people that part, and surprisingly, I made up a good, I shouldn't say good, an accurate or believable around being sarcastic. And so I thought she was joking, and I laughed at her. And then she said, "Okay, well, screw you," and then didn't go on the album. And then, I said, just thinking back on that, I had, people searching her name alone would have helped sell the album. Well, first of all, none of that's relevant because I actually never met her. She was never there. She never offered. That was all fabricated. And I thought that was the end of it. I thought it was something simple. No one would. It would have been irrelevant at this point. However, I told the story to someone, and then I found out that she actually was in the movie Pitch Perfect, because that had just come out, and I found out she could sing, which actually spiced up the story more and made it really interesting. Because then, her voice, realistically, her voice would have fit really well with that duet. But once again, I never met her. She never offered. That was all fabricated, but it tied with the story more and made it more interesting. So I kept saying it, and it came so naturally eventually. But once again, I thought that there was something so irrelevant, it would never come back. It wouldn't really matter. And so it just kind of went on and on, so to speak, until this past summer. Yeah, talk about small world and lies biting you in the butt. This past summer, my very good friend that I need to talk to more often, Will, his mother went to a charity dinner and met Anna Kendrick, and then proceeded to talk to her about me, and recited the story that I told everyone to Anna Kendrick, who said, "I don't recall him, but that definitely sounds like me." And so either she was being very polite or actually pulled off sounding like her. But regardless, something I thought would never get back, never would circulate to that point, did. And though it, like I said, you can say it as harmless, the pattern is not harmless. The pattern I was justifying as it didn't hurt, blah, blah, blah. But that could actually, there's certain things that it could do, and I'm pretty upset at myself or was upset. Well, I need to tell Will now too. So I'm going to tell him later today, hopefully, if I'm holding myself accountable now. I have to tell him later today that was all fabricated, my whole story, and I'm sorry, that's not true. None of it is. And to everyone else I told that to, and that wasn't true. And I didn't need to add that lie. It was already, the truth was already amazing enough. I met Peter Keys. It's just when someone's, you say that, and people, I heard someone ask, "Who else did you meet?" Well, I mean, a lot of the musicians I performed with were amazing, and they were traveling with some amazing artists. But for some reason, I felt like I needed to go further on it. I needed to spice it up more. And so throughout my life, there's amazing things that have happened, amazing adventures I've went on, amazing stories I can tell. And then within those amazing adventures and stories, there's sprinkled in some lies and made up stuff. And there's been enough crazy stuff that's happened in my life that I don't need to make it up. Like, so here's one that, if I did two truths and a lie, that Anna Kendrick thing would be the lie. So here's an actual truth, though. I actually, when I was working out in Bachelor Gulch, in Colorado, I almost did get in a fight with Dennis Quaid. I didn't need to make that one up. That was actually crazy enough that it happened. I mean, we didn't actually fight, but almost. It got heated argument, 2 days in a row. But I didn't. So that was one, like, I didn't have to make that up. That actually, happened. And I love him in his movies, but I think he's a real jerk in person from that little tiny bit I met him on. So I don't really know him as a person. I don't know him from that little tiny part of my job. But anyway, previous job. So, and I've went on to all these amazing places in my life. I went to Germany, Brazil, North Italy. So there's a lot of amazing things I've seen, even within our country. But I just had that. I always get that wanting to spice up the story, exaggerate the story. It's kind of like the fisherman that caught a fish that was, an 8-inch fish, but when they tell the story, they caught a fish this big. Every time it gets a little bit bigger. And it seems harmless, but it's not. I mean, those examples can be harmless, but the pattern isn't, because it's justifying it's justifying a lie by saying it's harmless. It's justifying a lie by saying, well, part of it's true, or by omitting something that it's, you told the truth, but you didn't tell all of the truth. Well, there's something called lying by omission. If you tell something and there's more to it that changes the meaning and choose not to say that, that's lying by omission. So, so I was guilty of that quite frequently. But here's where the real challenge comes in. So the longer you go with a lie, the harder it is to correct. And it's also a challenge, and it's uncomfortable because you're literally admitting the struggle on the spot. And I still have to do this. And every now and then I'll catch myself and I'll do it on the fly. I'll correct it on the fly. And that is just that when you find yourself exaggerating the truth, or you say something that's not the truth, or not the whole truth, correcting yourself on the spot. And that's how I'm trying to break that habit. And I'm successfully breaking it, I can honestly say, because I catch myself calling myself out a lot when I slip and start going that route, exaggerating or lying, however you want to put it. But I don't have to call myself out nearly as much, because I'm actually, one of the gifts I have is I'm very, very self-aware with what's going on and hear what's coming out. Even if I say something fast and then I realize I said something after the fact, I'm good at analyzing it on the fly. So when I start to say something, if someone asks, where were you at? And I say, oh, I forgot my coat. And then I go, oh, no, that was a lie. I was just, dinking around. So I have to call myself out, I didn't forget my coat, I was literally, I was on my phone. That's why I was late. I didn't take care of time management well, But it's habit to make excuses. That still falls under, that ties in with honesty. One of the struggles I have right now is, part of it is the holidays, but my time management has been much poorer than it should be, and it's not because of just the holidays. Partially, the holidays contributes, and this also can go with my eating habits. I like to blame the poor eating habits on the holidays, but I know the holidays are coming. It's not like it blindsided me. I knew Christmas was on December 25th. I knew when Thanksgiving's the last, the fourth Thursday or whatever of November. So I know all this stuff in advance, and yet here I continue to make that, those slips this year with the eating habits. So I can make the mistake, try making the justifications. Well, I did it because it was Christmas. Well, no, I knew better, and I did it because I tried making an exception, and I made a poor choice. Now, I don't beat myself up over those choices, because I know that today's a new day, and I've made a lot of corrections to that. And tomorrow I'm going to make a lot more corrections, because I still try to justify eating all these not so healthy choices for leftovers. So, it's a work in progress, but I think excuses is probably the biggest thing where honesty hurts us. And when it comes to relationships, past, present, new, it is a serious foundation for that. I mean, with friends and family that I've already had here, correcting the lies of the past and being as honest as possible going forward, even when it's not comfortable. That's the big thing. Sometimes honesty's not comfortable. Someone asks a tough question, it's not always comfortable to answer. And so here's the thing. If you can't answer it honestly, if it's something that's so uncomfortable that you cannot honestly answer, it's okay to tell someone that you can't answer that right now. It's okay to say, I'm not comfortable enough to answer that, or I can't answer it at this point, instead of making up a lie. This is my take on it. You can disagree with me. You can have an alternate viewpoint on this. This is what I've had to address in my life going forward, and it's helped me going forward. So, being honest with people, and it's crucial for me. And it's early on, it was more challenging than it is now. Being honest with newer people that I meet. Let's see, I'd say it would be a few months ago now. A few months ago, I started going back into that whole dating world, and one of the things that I decided. Now, I started doing this with friends before the dating world, new friends, and that is being completely honest on my background, my intentions, everything. The intentions one surprisingly is easy for me. It's I understand that I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste their time. So that one comes off easy. My intentions, are long-term relationship, find someone. So all this that part's common, simple for me, I feel. Where I wasn't sure if I would be able to handle, but I knew I had to, was addressing the dark parts of my past. And addressing parts where I'm still struggling today. So, dark parts of my past would be, I am a recovering addict. I struggled with cocaine use for about 5 years. Very, very, it was a very, very big struggle. I made several poor choices in that time, and that's an understatement on several. And same with the poor choices part. I lost a whole lot in my life, but I didn't lose everything, fortunately. And so eventually, originally not by choice, I cleaned up. And then, by that, I mean, the place I was staying at was raided. And, so it wasn't until about a week later that I actually made the decision that I didn't want to go back to that life, that I wanted to clean up and do everything I could to stay clean. Anyway, so I had to tell people this right off the bat, and I'm okay with telling it now. That's one of the advantages of having a podcast and being able to openly express the past and address it with everyone. So I had to be honest with people up front on that I'm a recovering addict. That I did go into treatment, that I have been clean for over 2 years, but that is part of my past. And I will continue to seek professional help for that. I'll continue to go to meetings for that. I'll continue working on myself for that. I also have the fortune of seeing the positive of that dark past. The fortunate part of it is, because of my addiction, I get to see the world differently. I have a in myself that realistically, had I not went through that struggle, I probably wouldn't have addressed it. I used to have the attitude of, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Which I've now have the attitude of, just because it's not broke doesn't mean you can't improve upon it. And there's always room for improvement. That's a beautiful thing, always being able to improve. So that's how I face that, the reality from the dark part of the past, how it's changed me. But the other part this is actually even harder to address than the addiction and the problems with struggles I had with substance use, is addressing that those poor decisions led to jail time. And in an 18-month span, I spent 14 of them behind bars. Now, 7 of those 14 months came after I voluntarily turned myself in, which I will tell you was a very, very, very tough choice. It was tougher for me to do that than it was for me to actually go to treatment. Because I knew that in jail, because I'd already been there for 7 months, I knew that there were more opportunities and more pressure for drug use there than there was on the outside. And you were trapped in a toxic environment. So you didn't have the luxury of the outside where you can hang out with a healthier group of people, have healthier venting and coping opportunities. So so that was nerve-wracking a bit because I knew that the challenge ahead for my recovery in that. But anyway, I had to address these. I didn't have to, but I chose to address these things. For some people, that was a deal breaker. But I'm glad I addressed it right off the bat, because had I covered that up or delayed telling someone that, it might have not worked out later on anyway. And that would have been unfair to them. It would have been unfair to me. It would have been a waste of time and energy for both people. By addressing it right off the bat, I was able to find the who was worth making the effort to get to know, making the effort to meet them, to spend time with them, and so I had to address those parts of the past and get past that. The last thing that was hard to address, and this one I will say is still challenging because it's a present, not a past. It's easier for me now to address the past because I know that's not me today. And I know that some of my struggles today are from the past, and there won't be a forever struggle. But they still are challenging for me to address. So one of them, in case people didn't know, is that I am, fortunately, I'm near the late stages of this. After treatment and after the jail, I moved in with my parents. Not exactly what you want to do when you're in your 30s, but is what I needed to do. And I'm very, very grateful that my family was able to help me up. I'm grateful that they were there and offered to let me stay with them to get back on my feet, get stable in the recovery community, get stable with my recovery in general outside of jail. And most importantly, so I could financially have a little bit of comfort and stability, dealing with, at the time, probation, still dealing with some of the legal costs and paying off that debt. It's not easy to address that with people, especially people that don't know you yet. But it's important. So when asked, what my living situation is, I chose to be as honest and open as possible, and that was a perfect opportunity for me to talk about my dark past, and that my parents have helped me to get on my feet, and I'm blessed to announce that hopefully here in January, this is what is very much looking like. In January, I will finally be moving out of this shared living situation with my parents. I'm sure they're as happy as I am. They're happy for me, and they're also probably breathing relief. Like, okay, we don't have to share the place with him anymore. It's a mutual relief. But they helped me get to where I am. They helped me get on my feet. And I have to be honest with people and address that openly. And I think that what makes it hard for me to address that sometimes with people is I know the stereotype behind it. Someone in their 30s living at home with their parents. It isn't hard to see where that goes. I mean, they made a movie, a great, very funny movie, Step Brothers. That's kind of like that, an exaggeration of it, but still, you get the point. So I didn't want to be tied to that, and I feel that's where it's very important to put it into context, to mention the dark past, and even before my dark past, I wasn't exactly the most what's the word? I was ambitious, but I wasn't very motivated. So I would have never created my own business and done what I've done so far in the past. It just wouldn't have happened. I didn't have the drive to do that. I was great as an employee for someone, but the independent thing didn't work. That was why the singer-songwriter thing really, really fell through. Created the album, but the whole getting out, performing, I didn't do that. I didn't want to travel. I had the blind idea that you create it, you put it online, poof, there it goes. And it doesn't work that way. You got to put in some time. You got to do a lot of time and shows to to make a living that way. But I wasn't willing to do it at the time. So that's part of my growth. I had to get to that point. I'm there now, fortunately. I guess that's part of the kick in the butt that you get from having a second chance after an extensive struggle with active addiction. But I had to, anyway, I had to address, going forward and facing those things that are uncomfortable to talk about. So, and I feel even going forward, that's when being honest with myself and with others for my thoughts, my feelings, that kind of ties with, it really ties with communication, the honesty part. Combine that with openness, and it's pretty essential. But it's a work in progress. I won't lie. There's areas where I still struggle with, but calling myself out when I notice them is a big step that I've been working on. And addressing the past, that one I've actively still got to do better on, but I am actively working on as well. So that is honesty for today. It looks like I became pretty darn close to 30 minutes, so I apologize if you thought that was a little bit long-winded. I just had a lot to cover in that one. So right off the bat, the story on Anna Kendrick was probably a bit excessive. But anyway, so that is today's Andy's Chomping at the Bit episode. I do also want to mention that Singing for a Cause is coming up here, not this weekend, but the following weekend. So January, I'm not actually going to have a spotlight charity, because January, as I kind of hinted at, is going to be a very, very busy month for me, potentially here. That's what it's looking like. So I'm going to do a charitable cause. I will announce that charitable cause on either New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, so you're aware of what I'll be advocating for on January for Singing for a Cause. But those performances will be on the first and third Sunday of every month, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. So thank you for tuning in. I am very grateful for your time. I hope you have a great weekend. And next week on Monday, there will be another Daily Biscuit. And, of course, on New Year's, there will also be another Daily Biscuit. So take care. Have a happy New Year. And I'll do another Andy Chomping at the Bit in the new year. Take care.